The Nasty Boys. The Nasty Boys are a professional wrestling tag team consisting of Brian Knobbs and Jerry Saggs, active from the mid to late 1980s and throughout the 1990s. Their gimmick was that of anti-social punks who specialized in hardcore wrestling and brawling. They were noted for their distinctive all-black street look, which, while very commonplace among today's wrestlers, was vastly different from the colorful attire of their wrestling peers of the late 1980s and early 1990s. This included graffiti-sprayed T-shirts, chain-adorned leather trenchcoats, and their distinctive mullet-hawk haircut. Career: American Wrestling Association and Florida Championship Wrestling 1985–1988. Jerry Biff Saggs and Brian Buff Knobbs were childhood friends, both hailing from Whitehall Township, Pennsylvania, who put themselves together, whereas most tag teams were and still are matched by bookers. They began their careers in the American Wrestling Association in 1985 and began teaming together as the Nasty Boys in 1986. They first started moving up the cards while in Memphis as a heel team against the face team of the Midnight Rockers. In 1988, they moved to Florida Championship Wrestling, where they won 5 tag team championships between 1989 and 1990. While they were in Memphis, Jerry Lawler gave them the idea to change their look: spandex gold tights and long boots, so Saggs and Knobbs decided to cover their bodies. They also painted their faces, but they dropped the face paint when wrestling outside of Memphis. World Championship Wrestling 1990. In 1990, the Nasty Boys joined World Championship Wrestling WCW. They initially feuded with the Steiner brothers Rick and Scott, but were unable to defeat them for the United States Tag Team Championship. World Wrestling Federation 1990–1993. The Nasty Boys left WCW in December 1990 and joined the World Wrestling Federation WWF, debuting on the December 29 episode of Superstars of Wrestling. Along with their manager Jimmy Hart, they announced their intention to nasticize the WWF. After becoming the #1 contenders by winning a 7-team battle royal on the February 16, 1991, airing of Superstars of Wrestling, last eliminating the Legion of Doom thanks to interference from Power and Glory, they defeated the Hart Foundation for the WWF World Tag Team Championship at WrestleMania Roman 7. They held the titles until SummerSlam 1991, when they were defeated by the Legion of Doom in a no disqualification, no countout match. They then feuded with the Rockers and the Bushwhackers, leading to a match at Survivor Series 91, where they teamed with the Beverly Brothers to defeat both teams. In the early part of 1992, the Nasty Boys had a feud with Hacksaw Jim Duggan and Sergeant Slaughter, culminating in an 8-man tag team match at WrestleMania Roman 8, where Duggan, Slaughter, Big Boss Man, and Virgil defeated the Nasty Boys, the Mountie, and Repo Man. That fall, they turned face and dumped Jimmy Hart as their manager after Hart overlooked them for a tag team title match against the Natural Disasters, instead giving the title shot to his other tag team of Money Inc. Knobbs and Saggs teamed with the Natural Disasters. On the March 13, 1993 edition of WWF Superstars, it was announced that the Nasty Boys had agreed to step aside and allow Hulk Hogan and Brutus Beefcake to have a one-time title shot against Money Inc. They then entered a house show series against the Headshrinkers and wrestled to double disqualifications on multiple occasions. Their feud spilled onto WWF television as they wrestled once more to a double DQ against Fatu and Samu on the Italian version of WWF Superstars that saw both teams hitting each other with chairs in a post-match brawl. In April 1993, after a European tour, they were suspended and later fired from the company. Their final television appearance came on May 16, 1993, when they defeated Steve Vega and Barry Horowitz on WWF Superstars. Return to WCW 1993–1997. The Nasty Boys returned to WCW in July 1993 as heels managed by Missy Hyatt. They defeated Arn Anderson and Paul Roma at Fall Brawl 1993 to become WCW World Tag Team Champions. They would then lose the championship on October 4 to Marcus Alexander Bagwell and Too Cold Scorpio before regaining it on October 24. In 1994, they fought Cactus Jack and Max Payne in a series of wild brawls. They were supposed to feud with Kevin Sullivan and his kayfabe dyslexic brother Dave, who called himself Evad Dave backwards. Evad, however, injured his knee, and Sullivan convinced Cactus Jack to team with him. The Nasties lost the title to the Thrown Together team of Jack and Sullivan in a wild Philly street fight at Slamboree 1994. Knobs and Sags went on to feud with tag teams such as Harlem Heat and the Blue Bloods. At Slamboree 1995, they defeated Harlem Heat to become three-time WCW Tag Team Champions, but dropped the title back to them soon after. In 1996, the New World Order offered them membership into the NWO, but attacked them as soon as they received their NWO t-shirts. In the subsequent match against Scott Hall and Kevin Nash, Sags became enraged during the contest after being struck on the head. He had thought Hall had struck him with a chair and retaliated by attacking him and knocking his tooth out. After the match, Sags filed a lawsuit. He later saw footage and found out it was Nash that had hit him with a tag belt. He was released from his contract in early 1997 and retired. After Sags left the company, Knobs continued as a singles wrestler and began pursuing the WCW Hardcore Championship. Independent Circuit 1997–present. The Nasty Boys were briefly reunited in the short-lived XWF and the World Wrestling Council in Puerto Rico. Since retirement, the boys have both appeared on Hogan Knows Best and the WWE magazine's Where Are They Now section. On November 21, 2009, they were involved with the Hulkamania Let the Battle Begin Australian tour event in Melbourne, Australia, and wrestled and defeated Reno Anoa'i and Vampire Warrior in an Australian street fight. Return to WWE 2007. On November 22, 2007, Brian Knobbs and Jerry Sags were formed at the WWE SmackDown tapings from Tampa, Florida to wrestle their first WWE match in 14 years. They defeated Dave Taylor and Drew McIntyre. They only lasted one night before being subsequently released. Total Nonstop Action Wrestling 2010. On January 4, 2010, the Nasty Boys made their debut appearance on Total Nonstop Action Wrestling's television show, TNA Impact, where they trashed Team 3D's locker room during their absence from the show while in Japan. This initiated a feud, with both teams exchanging physical onslaughts with one another. On the January 14 episode of Impact, Team 3D returned but were attacked by the Nasty Boys. On the January 21 episode of Impact, the Nasty Boys competed in their first match for TNA, defeating the team of Eric Young and Kevin Nash. On the January 28 episode of Impact, the Nasty Boys and Team 3D got into an intense confrontation to hype their upcoming match. On the February 4 episode of Impact, the Nasty Boys attacked Team 3D after a match until Hernandez and Matt Morgan made the save. At Against All Odds, the Nasty Boys defeated Team 3D in a tag team match when Jimmy Hart made his return to the company and interfered in the match on the Nasty Boys' behalf. On the February 25 edition of Impact, Team 3D defeated the Nasty Boys in a tables match when Jess Neal interfered on Team 3D's behalf. The Nasty Boys and Hart continued their feud with Team 3D on the March 15 episode of Impact by defeating them and the returning Brother Runt, a replacement for Jess Neal, whom the Nasties attacked prior to the match, in a six-man tag team match. After the match, Neal attacked the Nasties and helped Team 3D put Sags through a table. On March 29, 2010, news broke that the Nasty Boys had been released by TNA following an incident at a TNA function with Spike executives present. Reputation. The Nasty Boys have a reputation of being very stiff with their opponents. They have also been involved in ribbing, pranking backstage other wrestlers, and also in several legitimate fights. Championships and accomplishments. American Wrestling Association, AWA Southern Tag Team Championship 2 times, Florida Championship Wrestling, SCW Tag Team Championship 5 times, Championship Wrestling International, CWI Tag Team Championship 1 time, North American Wrestling Association / South Atlantic Pro Wrestling, NAWA / SACWA Tag Team Championship 1 time, Pro Wrestling Illustrated, PWI Tag Team of the Year Award in 1994, PWI ranked them #53 of the best tag teams of the PWI years in 2003. Professional Wrestling Federation, PWF Tag Team Championship 1 time, World Championship Wrestling, WCW World Tag Team Championship 3 times, World Wrestling Federation, WWF World Tag Team Championship 1 time, X Wrestling Federation, XWF World Tag Team Championship 1 time, Wrestling Observer Newsletter, Best Gimmick 1996 and Wall, Feud of the Year 1996 New World Order vs. World Championship Wrestling.